in. It is Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM, NASCAR Channel 90 here on a big week as we go to Pocono. Chicago is behind us, and we have an awesome guest today, Kurt Busch, who is a legendary Roush Fenway Keselowski driver. He was there during the Roush days, and man, some great memories in that car. KB is with us. Kevin Woods from the Roush Fenway Keselowski media communication side is going to be co-hosting with me today. You know Kevin, who's a just absolute stud in the world of NASCAR. But Kurt Busch, hello. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to walk back through this building and walk down memory lane.
It is great to have you in the building. I know you spend a lot of time with 2311, and you're helping out there and working for them. And what an exciting team that you're with right now. But we want to talk about the old days. We want to reminisce. Jack Roush, your relationship. Thought it would be really cool to kind of walk down memory lane. And we could also talk about modern NASCAR, because certainly I think this season's been pretty damn entertaining. And the Chicago race, if nothing else, was interesting this past weekend. But it's great to have you. I just want to get started with how you and Jack Roush came together all those years ago. I guess it's been, what, like 25 years, something like that. Give us the background of how you ended up with Roush.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a fun story with the whole gong show, like the tryout system of the Truck Series back in the day. But the way that I was coming up through the racing world out in the desert Southwest with Southwest Tour, I had a great team, great opportunity with that situation, and we won at Sonoma in 1999 in a Southwest Tour car. It was basically like ARCA West, which is what we currently have this time of day. And after that, my phone was ringing. Like Richard Childress, Jack Roush, I was like, wait a minute, there's no way these guys are calling, right? And then it was Livonia, Michigan is where the truck team was. And that group assembled the Northwest Tour champion, the Southwest Tour champion, which is who I was, the Northeast, and there was a Goodies Dash Series racer, Robert Huffman, I think, yeah. And then one of Biffle's buddies. But Biffle shook down the truck at Toledo, Ohio, and us five all had 2 sets of tires, quick 20-minute practice, and you would interact and tell them what setup changes you needed. And there was mock-up interviews, and then it was, all right, here's your fresh set of tires. And so you go out there and run. And I about wrecked the truck 19 times, 20 times, right? Because it was the most horsepower I had ever felt.
Yeah.
And that's how I performed well enough that day. But the real one was the second invite, and we all went to Phoenix. All of us, again, there was a couple more new guys. I think one of the Sodders, Tim Sodder. And my slowest lap at Phoenix was everyone's fastest lap. And I remember calling my dad afterwards. I'm like, hey, if we don't get this gig, I'm plenty fast here. Maybe things will work out in the future.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got the ride. And then I met Jack in Daytona the next year. Like I never met him until rolling up to Daytona, and I was just totally intimidated, obviously, by Jack and Jeff Smith. The
Were you
whole
like,
system.
21 at the time?
Yeah,
like, you're young.
Yeah, just turned 21.
Yeah.
Here we go, right?
Yeah.
When you say you met him in
Daytona,
Daytona,
either, which is crazy. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm
sorry. In Daytona, was that the first truck race?
Yeah, that was the first.
So you didn't meet
ever,
Jack until you were about to start that sounds about
yeah,
the
it was
way
the first ever truck race in Daytona. Again, I wrecked about 33 times in that race. Still finished second. And that's when I got my first bonus check, and I'm like, ooh. And so I bought a pool table.
One thing I always found really interesting with you at that time was you skipped what was then the Busch Series, Xfinity Series, whatever you want to call it, which was very uncommon to skip from truck to go to the Cup Series. And how did that kind of come about?
Super crazy, right? I mean, quick timeline. I'll make this long story short. I started racing in 1994. I was 16 years old. My dad let me drive his car. September of 2000, I'm in a Cup car, qualified 10th at Dover. 6 years.
That's crazy.
6 years of not even doing go-kart stuff, just straight up like legend cars, what I started in. And yeah, It went that fast. And to go from truck to Cup, Jack Roush came up to me after we won Milwaukee. It was like July 4th weekend. So that was my first ever win in trucks. And he says, hey, would you like to go to Cup? I'm like, what? You win one truck race and now you want to go to Cup? Like, sure, I'm ready if you're ready, but we're going to wreck a lot of stuff. And so, yeah, you're right. It was a quick transition. That's why I wasn't ready to be a professional athlete, a professional driver. There's so much with sponsors, so much with media. And basically I was just guns a-blazing, like, that's how fast I got there, and I didn't know any better. So it was a pretty wild ride of how quick I got there, and I got promoted. And Biffle I thought Biffle was going to get the gig. But they put me in there, and away we went.
My memory of the whole thing, Kurt, I would say it was all fast, right? You were fast, it was fast, but that 2001 season, that was a little bit like any rookie year without an Xfinity. And I guess the point I want to bring up is, that culminated with what I guess should have been the last race with Atlanta. And what I remember is you don't make the race.
Yeah, we didn't qualify.
I mean, you literally,
I missed the race.
A different kind of set of rules, and
ran out of
you
provisionals.
No provisionals.
We ran out of provisionals.
And and I remember Jack made the team stay and come to the track and just kind of hang out with nowhere to be and that type of thing. But I bring that up.
Did he? Because I drove out in my rental car.
Yeah, they were real happy about that.
They're still qualifying. I knew that I was out. I drove out of the racetrack and just drove back up to Charlotte.
Yeah, I might have heard a couple of times Kurt went home. We're all here in our
That's
cruise
awesome.
suits. But the reason I bring that up is because did that light some kind of fire in you? Because if you come back to that next season, 2002, it was like from that point on, it was just kind of on. And I know you got Jimmy Fennig as your crew chief, which is obviously great. But I looked at some stats over those next few years. You led around 3,300 laps. That's more than Mark and Matt combined led during that time. You won 14 races. You won a championship. I mean, nobody in this sport you could make the argument was faster than you guys during that period. And it seemed like just from that, maybe in that moment, it's kind of a low point. But when you got back, in the spring for the next year, it just seemed like from that point on, I can't remember how many times we were hauling 7-foot Sharpies to victory lane.
That's right. No, it was Jimmy Fennig. It was his group of guys. Mark Martin, obviously our leader as the driver and the seniority. I respect him so much. He taught me so much, and he was always super truthful and clear with me. Other teammates would always, slide a hand or something that.
Okay.
And Mark loved Ben Leslie, my crew chief at the time when I was a rookie, and I was enamored by Jimmy Fennig, like his just legend status and how good he was with people, and how he knew what needed to happen with the car. And when we switched, so Mark, I think, was the one that initiated the change, or Jack and the whole group. And once me and Jimmy Fennig settled in, it was lights out.
And to be clear, they switched everything. They switched haulers, truck drivers, the cups on what you drink. Everything switched. It was like a 100% switch. It was very, actually an interesting time. But I believe you finished second and third in the points that year, both of them.
We got third in points, won 4 races. So here I am, a cellar dweller, my rookie year.
Sure.
And the second year in, finishing third in points. Running Mark Martin, he finished second. And Tony Stewart won that year. And it was just, we were ballers. Like, we were on the gas going. I was fighting with Jimmy Spencer. And then it was just like, all right, we got to settle here. This is going to be good. And when they announced the new format for the playoffs, me and Jimmy really sat down and dissected it like analysts and data and said, this is what we got to do these next 10 weeks.
You brought the Spencer thing up. We won't go too much into that, but I will say you had the best one-liners of anybody I've ever. You literally kept this place entertaining with some of the things that you would say. And I did think, as much as Jimmy Fennig was a genius with a race car, he was pretty much a genius with keying his mic up to drown you out during races.
Yeah, he would key the mic and be like all that squelching.
Because God knows what Kurt might be saying. You're talking about that group of people that we had here at that time, and like I said, I mean, you were outrunning them, but it was kind of a who's who of Hall of Famers to be, right? You, Matt. Probably Greg eventually. Bert was here. Carl later. I mean, a hell of a lineup. What was it like to just all of a sudden be in that room?
It was a Dynasty era, and every team, all 5 of us, had a shot at winning each week. You know, in 2005, all of us were in the playoffs. And the mentality for me, as the youngest and the newest, I just had that cocky attitude in the back of my mind of, I can beat these guys 7 out of 10 races. They're going to beat me, but I'm going to beat them more. And it was just staying tight with Jimmy Fennig.
It was an interesting era here because we had, at the time we had so many race teams. We flew to and from the races on 2 727s.
Oh, yeah, Jack Roush Air.
And literally, it would be, you had 5 teams, and 4 of them were pissed off. I don't care if we finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 2 through 5 was mad as hell getting back to the airplane about not winning. It was expected of all those teams to win the race. Like anything else was a dismal failure. So it was a crazy.
Was there any tension? Like, if you look between teams, was it a little? I mean, you're the young guy, so were you? You said you were a little cocky. Did you rub anybody the wrong way? Like, how did that whole thing look like in hindsight?
I know the biggest moment of teammates was with Kenseth in the playoffs in 2005. I was on the radio like, hey, I'm not that good today. I'm running second to you. Mm-hmm. I radioed, hey, can you just slide over, give me 5 points for leading a lap? And then there was like, no, this isn't happening. I'm like, wait, we've all worked together here to get to the playoffs. Yeah. Let's kind of keep working through this. And Robbie Reiser, Kenseth, they were like, no. I burned up my right front after I was mad.
Yeah.
And I ended up having to pit because I had a right front issue and finished 25th. I don't know. And I was mad in the team meeting. And he's just like, Kenseth, that the Midwestern sense of humor, he's just like, you couldn't catch me. I'm not going to let you go. So that was a big friction moment, but that was about it. I mean,
okay.
Mark, I always idolized him. Greg Biffle, him and I were so much buddies.
It is healthy competition.
Yeah.
But it was elite competition.
Yep. It was genuine. It was really cool.
Yeah.
We all taught each other how to kick everyone's butt.
I remember a story I was thinking about the other day when I first met you. We went down to testing in Daytona, and the sports changed so much. But at the time, if you remember back then, January was just full of, like, from January 1st till you got to Daytona, all you did was stuff.
Yeah.
And you tested for like 2 weeks, and there was and we were down there, and it'd be like 35, 40 media members covering tests. I mean, it was all crazy. And I convinced Mark, I was pretty new, and I convinced Mark, instead of 22 people coming to me asking for an interview, why don't we just go to the damn media center and just say, hey, Mark's going to be here at 11:30 and talk to him, and we'll be done with you. And he was like, that's a good idea. We'll get it all over with. And we're walking out of the hauler, and he sees Kurt, and he's like, Kurt, come on, we're going to the media center. He doesn't want to go by himself. And Kurt's like, what? He's like, we're going to the media center. We're going to talk to media. And Kurt's like, on purpose, So we go to the media center, and it's not even the media center. That's the old one. Remember that old big building full of cigarettes and stuff. and they get in there, and I put, Mark's there, and there's like 25 people all over him. I put Kurt over here, and it's kind of just sitting there, because it's the year before everything just turned. He finishes third, and I'm getting like Lee Spencer. Hey, go talk to Kurt. I drug him in here, but I say that because you was in there and barely known, and within 2 years you were standing on the stage in New York, the champion of the sport, which is just a crazy meteoric rise.
Again, how fast it all moved. And I remember one of my favorite moments in the media center was 2002. We're starting to crank out some wins, and somebody, I have no idea who, and they're like, wow, you're having an awesome rookie year. You're just changing all the stats. Jimmy Johnson's out there. This is 2002.
Yeah.
Ryan Newman. And this guy, because I did so bad my rookie year, he thought that 2002 was my rookie year. And I just flat out said, dude, I've been here for a year and a half. Where you been?
Yeah.
That he was giving you a mulligan.
That might have changed media's attitude towards me. I was just trying to just straighten his facts out.
Hey, we talk about the first win that you got.
Loved it, yeah.
Was it kind of that just kind of break the dam open?
Stressing through the rookie year, right? We didn't qualify at Atlanta in 2001. 2002 starts off, and the car and the handling, everything's just like, wow, this is grip. This is speed. And Bristol was what, I don't know, 6th or 7th race?
Yeah.
When I won that, I felt like, wow, I'm going to make it here.
Mm-hmm.
I might belong.
Mm-hmm.
But it was 50 races or so in before that stress of, again, like all these new tracks in the trucks, all these new tracks in the Cup car, skipped Xfinity. I thought I was going to get axed. I mean, Jack was tough. Jack would he would come up to you and give you some advice or something, and you're like, wait a minute, did he just like cut the legs out from underneath me?
Yeah.
It was tough. And so finally winning that race, and I say finally, I mean, it was early in my career, and it just seemed like, all right, now I can take a breath. And now here we roll. And it was really cool. That chassis number 46, this might be a small tangent. I'll make this a little short story.
Yeah, go
here.
for it.
Chassis 46.
Let's go, yeah.
That car was magical. We won, probably, if I have 14 wins here, that car won 10 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Car just cut, stuck, drove off the corner, any size track, any place other than a road course and a super speedway. That car won a ton of mile and a halves, and it won Bristol 4 times.
Was it your favorite car you ever drove?
Yeah, that car had
any yeah.
It had that personality. Now
Yeah.
cars are so streamlined. There's the assembly line.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why I left Roush was after I won the championship, they started taking some of my cars because Mark Martin wanted one. He wanted this one, or Kenseth wanted that one.
Yeah.
Everybody started to share. It was just kind of like throwing cards out on a table, and you pick, and that's the one you had. And I didn't know. These cars have character. Back then, they had more character. And they're like, nope, that's the way we're not going to do it that way.
Now, I'll ask you this. Are you sure it was the same car? Because a funny story I had with a driver I worked with, I'm not going to name for this. You can guess who it was. He had this car that he loved. I think it was 231. And we'd always talk about this 231. But anyway, years later, his crew chief told me, he said, it's easy to change that plate.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He thought he was driving 231 every week, but I'm not sure. I was curious.
When it's on a plate and it's riveted
It's
in.
like a superstition thing, yeah.
that can be changed. No, back in the day, we would put stamps, like a hammer with a die. It would stamp it in the chassis. I always looked, and I always saw it.
Fantastic. A trivia thing I think a lot of people don't realize anymore is that for a very short moment, you and your brother both drove here.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, with him in the trucks. He was 16 years old, and I mean, he almost won Chicago Motor Speedway, the flat 1 mile track way back in the day. But yeah, I helped him get a job. Kyle will always say that he did it all on his own.
They changed the age on him, correct?
Yeah, so he was
kind of just didn't
it was
work
in,
out after that.
Yeah, California Speedway, walking out for qualifying. His name was in the news because he was the quickest in practice. And the legend of the story is that Marlboro, which is Winston, the cigarettes, they're like, hey, we can't have a 16-year-old competing in this series because there was billboards. I mean, it's a Craftsman Truck Series, but there were billboards that...
we still have one of those Winston billboards at the fairgrounds, I think. I think it's still up.
Yeah, so they're a little faded red.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's what they used as the card to pull my brother out. And that's when I started to learn a little bit of politics in some of this world. Yeah.
Skipping back real quick to 2005 and the championship. Talk about 04. I'm so sorry. 04. Okay. 5 is the 5 cars in the chase. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. And 3 was the first championship. So it was a hell of a
Yeah,
run
I let
there.
Matt win in 03.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you were just kind of, you couldn't win too early. It was, but in the 04, when you were going down that pit road and your tire falls off.
Oh gosh.
And it literally rolls out on the track to give you the call. I mean, what does that look like from the car? You know, it's got to be one of the craziest moments in the history of the sport. And then there you are looking at it, first person view.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, the start of the race, I don't even remember the national anthem. There were some reports that I had my hat on. And in Homestead, Miami, you can't quite hear the loudspeakers on pit road, and I'm just so nervous. It's the championship race. Everything's bonkers. Start the race. I was on pole. Like, we went there to kill it, and we did. And I led the first lap, and then I was so nervous, I'm just like, Biff, go by. Biff will lead after that. About 30 laps in, I'm getting this vibration. Well, it's the start of the race. It's not a loose wheel. If you have a pit stop, it usually starts right away on your vibration or your problem. I'm like, man, the right front tire's coming apart or something's going on. And then I'm like, oh, you're in your head, dude. You're in your head.
Yeah.
You're psyching yourself out on the pressure. the moment, the heat, like you're gonna fold. You're gonna fold like a lawn chair. And I told myself back, I'm like, no, there's something wrong. Use your spidey sense. Use something, like figure this out. And it started just getting worse and worse and worse. And so I had to pit. And when I hit the access road, I'm jamming through there as fast as I can. And I'm like trying to get slowed down for pit road speed. Right front comes off. And I'm aimed straight at the wall. Straight at the pit road wall. And my nose tingled. My other side of me was talking like, oh, you're done. And something helped pull my left foot off the brake. Like if you're driving in the snow. If you're driving in the snow and you get on the brakes, you don't turn.
Sure.
I lifted off the brake, and somehow the left front helped carve and stay away from the wall. It was amazing. Like, and I wasn't speeding, and then the wheel broke. The outer section of the wheel broke away from the center section. And it went out on track and created a yellow.
Yeah, because if it goes in with you, you might not get the yellow, and you're still cooked.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
so
we would have been cooked. We'd have been down 2 laps easily. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Like, all right, everybody calm down. And at the end of the race, I'll tell this little side nugget. It's like 52, 57 laps to go. I don't know. We can only go 55 on fuel. Something like that. Like we're 2 or 3 laps short. Fennig goes, we can't make it on fuel. We're not pitting here. And I said, if Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson pit, because that's who we were racing for the points, I'm pitting. We're either all going to drive back up through and run 1, 2, 3, or we're all going to finish 30th. I don't care. But I had that points cushion to make the call. I overrode Fennig, and we pitted. And we had to save fuel and keep pace with those guys.
Now, did he acknowledge that he was wrong there?
He might tell a different story and how it all went down. But
I bet he does.
Yeah,
I bet he does.
And we won it, though.
Let's take a break.
We won it, yeah.
Yeah, let's take a quick break, guys. This is an amazing conversation. Going back in time with the legendary Kurt Busch. Kevin Woods hanging out with me from the communication side of RFK. We got more with Kurt Busch when we come back at SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Hi, we're back here. It's SiriusXM's Backstretch Banter, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. We are going to Pocono this weekend, the number 6 and the number 17, hoping for a big weekend there at the Triangle. Next Lizette is the sponsor for Brett Keselowski this week. We got BuildSubmarines.com once again on the 17. Love that company. Love what they're doing. I mean, it is really cool when you can go and get a job and serve our country and build a submarine. I mean, it's pretty awesome. So check out BuildSubmarines.com. Kurt Busch is our guest. He is a legendary driver for RFK. Currently works with 2311. We all know him as one of the great drivers in NASCAR history. It's so good to have him on. We're walking down memory lane, talking about his days with RFK and winning the championship back in 2004. You were, Kurt, what age in 2004? Were you like 24, 25?
Yeah, 5 or 26. Jeff Gordon and I have the same birthday. It's weird.
Yeah, okay.
And he won his championship 1 year before I did. So I was like the 3rd youngest champion.
Did you feel, and NASCAR was such a huge phenomenon at the time in America, and I mean, you're a famous guy at that time. What is it like handling that? Because I got to feel for a young dude. I mean, you're 21, you get in with Roush. You don't know what you don't know. You're, like you said, you're a little bit cocky. But now when it turns into this, do you feel mentally prepared, or is it still, I don't know what I don't know, and this is kind of a wild ride?
It was overwhelming.
I bet.
I was unprepared, of course, and then with the success of winning races and championship, next thing you know, you're on Letterman. You're on Good Morning America. You're on this show. You're going to L.A. with Brian France, and he's putting you on a media tour. Vegas, my hometown. Just everything. No, I was not polished up, or I wasn't ready for all of that craziness. And I just
did any of that part of it give you anxiety? Because you were just, you're a race car driver. You just want a race car.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was like. Guys, we're here to race cars. We're not here to write People magazine stories. And that's when I think Jeff Gluck and I were having a good battle. It's like, dude, bro, report like a Chris Economaki, but report like the old school guys of this is racing, not drama on the racetrack of who's hitting who. It's like, whatever.
No, because you hit at a time where it's crazy, but the reporting was changing. You know, it wasn't about a magazine or whatnot. It was more about you were starting to get into that get a click reporting mentality.
Yeah, the click.
That's a good point,
you were good for a click.
And those, I was great for a click. And I'm like, no, this is not the way it went down. And then I was like, oh, the pen's mightier than the sword type of situation.
Yeah, they like to bait you. I'll ask you one thing with winning the championship. I mean, even at that point in time, did you grasp what a big deal? Because I mean, I've watched people, and there's still people here that never was able to do it. Like, was really good, Hall of Fame, first ballot, but was not able to accomplish that. And relatively accomplished it fast. And so the two things I would ask is, did you grasp how hard of a thing that was to do? Is it at the time you did it?
I did not. No, I underappreciated it, or I underestimated how difficult the challenge really was, and that happened over the years. My years at Penske, I'm like, oh, wow, this is tough.
Because it had to feel like it's just going to keep happening, right?
I was like, oh, shit. I'm here at top of Mount Everest. Let's keep rolling.
Well, I found this from back then. I don't.
What do you got, Woods?
One bit. Do you? I think
what is that?
Wow. Yes.
That's some nostalgia there.
Look at the
Wood
gang.
Describe. Yeah, he's got to describe.
It's a picture from Victory Lane at Homestead in
Nice.
2004 there. So
Those
other guys probably got old, but Kurt and I look pretty much the exact same.
That's you over here on the right.
No, that's me.
Kevin
right
Woods,
there.
Kevin Thomas, right there. Oh, sorry, left, right.
Yeah, remember Cheatham?
Yeah, Cheatham. That is fantastic. Yeah, these were the guys that changed my diapers. These are the guys that made
I
it
can
happen.
remember a few times me and Kevin Thomas debating whether we should. We had two choices. We could let you go out back and prove to all the media how mad you were and unagreeable you were. Or we could just let you go out the side and they could assume you were. And more than once, we sent you out the side door. Said, "Go get on the airplane."
That's right. Thank you.
I got a lot less trouble
too good.
if we just snuck him out than sometimes if we let him talk. But it was great, and it was a whole lot of fun. And I will say, it was just any time you guys went to the racetrack, it was like you were going to win a race.
One of I just had a big party Monster threw for me in Nashville, and it was cool to invite.
Thanks for the invite, Kurt.
Yeah, you didn't make the list. It was cool to see over the 7 Cup teams that I raced for. All were there. It was like a big melting pot of awesome stories, great wins, how hard we worked. And one of my social media guys from back in the day, he was like, yeah, Barney Visser was scared to death to hire you. And the way that this social media guy calmed it down for Furniture Row when I went there in 2013, he goes, Kurt's lightning in a bottle. If we release this lightning the right way, it's going to turn out to be very successful. If not, we got to keep the lid on it, and it might not work. And so that's when I started to become a bit more professional. I was humbled in the way that my first...
Did you see yourself that way? Did you think you were lightning?
I was like, hell yeah.
Or you just, I'm a guy.
Yeah, and then the
that's trying to
outlaw
race?
thing
Yeah.
came out because I'm like, I'm just doing it my way. I'm just doing it my way. Yeah, so that was a good transition for me running through those years.
The great Kurt Busch is with us here. It is Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. It is RFK's Backstretch Banter. Kurt got his start here with Roush, and what a career he had. Won the 2004 championship, and like Jack gave him that opportunity we talked about many, many moons ago. And look at the incredible run he's had since then. You mentioned earlier how you didn't get into a race car until you were 16, until you started driving your dad's car. I'm really curious about that, the whole family dynamic, and I'm sure you guys have told it a million times, but I don't know the story. So you get in a car at 16. You said a minute ago that your brother ends up starting to actually race at 16, so I'm assuming you kind of set the tone. Was mom and dad... I mean, there's a lot of parents now that won't even let their kids play football because of the head trauma. Were mom and dad like, go for it, do your like? How is that whole? I mean, letting two kids get behind a race car, I gotta think is an interesting family dynamic.
It's
Explain, please. Sir.
Yeah. Mom said, "Here's your baseball glove. Here's your baseball bat. You're going to play Little League."
Yeah,
She thought that would be safer.
That's standard. Yeah.
You know, she was so supportive of my dad. Grandma was there. We're a very small family, and my dad raced in the 80s. Was a late model champion. With the economy changed and his job changed, and we were barely scrapping things together.
Yeah.
He didn't race for maybe a decade, and in 1990, just friends, we found a 1977 Camaro to go race street stock, and he won 16 out of 16 races that year. And we went to the racetrack to win. That's what I remember as a kid. It wasn't social hour. It wasn't this, that. It was just we're there to win.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not in the pit area. I'm still way too young. I would have been 12. Kyle would have been 6.
Yeah.
And so we're in the grandstands. I'm doing the old school camcorder.
Yeah.
My dad, would, when I turned 13, it was like there was more responsibility with setting up tires, setting up the car, working on it, seeing it from the bottom up. And so just living it and watching, if I watch the Sunday Cup race with my dad, he would then pull the go-kart out of the shed and we would go to a bank parking lot that was close to the house. And because banks are closed on Sunday, and we just set up 2 Coke cans, we just smash them and just drive around.
For it. Yeah.
And within a year, I was faster than him on the go-kart.
Really?
With the stopwatch. Because I was 50 pounds.
Yeah, sure.
He's 6'3", 180. That's how it started. It was just family fun. And when I raced his car, I finished 5th in that first race.
Was Mom ever concerned?
She, of course.
Yeah, I bet.
And when I won my second race ever, I won. And my head got like huge, like Kyle Busch big, right? That second race is like, here we go. And then I wrecked my 3rd, 4th, 5th race in a row. We're up all night, welding things, building parts. And my dad sent me to a guy to go pick up an axle because I broke the axle in one of those wrecks. And the guy goes, "I need $90. I was like, my dad didn't give me any money.
I don't have $90, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, let's sweep up the shop floor. Let's clean up this equipment. Let's get my day ready for tomorrow. I had to go there for like 3 Fridays in a row of sweeping the floor, cleaning the equipment, and it was starting to then twist into, this is expensive. There's money involved in this. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I learned to pace myself a little on the track and try to break even in a sense with our purse money.
Sure.
That's how it all started.
Yeah.
And then Kyle, he got a start in legend cars at age 12 because the rules and insurance and things changed. Mm-hmm. And so here I am, 19, he's 12-ish. And I'm in the truck series, and he's starting out in legends. So we never raced against each other much when we were kids, just because of our age difference.
That's wild.
That's how it all started. Right? It wasn't like a Joey Logano push, or this. Yeah. This guy's got money, and we're just going to buy our way to the top. No, it was scrapping and
grassroots, man. Yeah. Just figuring out a way to get it done. Kevin, let's take a break. We'll take a break here. We'll come back. Let's say, unless you have something really important you have to jump in on, but we'll take a pause. We'll come back. We'll talk more with Kurt. It's Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio, Channel 90. We're back here. It's Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio, Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. Kevin Woods hanging out alongside today on the show. We are talking to the legendary Kurt Busch, who was a racer for RFK Racing back in the early 2000s, won a championship in 2004, and we're going down memory lane. It's been really cool to reminisce about the old days and the championships. And man, this team was very interesting back in those days. There's no question about it, and ultra competitive. Speaking of which, you talked earlier, Kurt, about Jack Roush and what kind of owner he was, how he motivated. Compare Jack and kind of the old school Richard Childress kind of, mentality to where we're at now in NASCAR. I talk a lot of college football, and I feel like the head coach has kind of had to soften a little bit because the mentality of the player has softened maybe a little bit. But where are we in NASCAR now, and how would you describe Jack Roush?
Yeah, when I first signed on, again, as a young 20-year-old, Jack's mentality had a lot of military vibe.
Yes.
He has P-51 Mustangs and flying and
Yeah.
the structure. If you're told to be at share a plane ride, at 7 a.m., you're supposed to be there at 6, helping him put gas in the plane, right? And just the mentality was very strict. But I understood it in a sense. But it was just like, wait, some of what he said in the media, some of his approach was a bit brash. It was a bit abrupt. And that rubbed on me like, oh, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can just,
Sure. Little arrogance, little cockiness.
It's funny because you used the word soften. It was not a soft place back then. Kurt said, you spent your first year thinking, I'm going to, get fired. I remember spending my first month here, honest to God, like, they're going to fire me from this job. There's no way perform. I can work here. And it was weird. I'm making it sound maybe worse than it was. I mean, there's an element to it that kind of got the best out of you, but it was, you were on your toes.
You weren't allowed to feel comfortable, is what you're saying.
I don't know if you weren't allowed to, or if that was just kind of. But it kind of goes back. You talk about the football. It was just a different day. You can't. It's not. And it never was as bad. Like Jack, like you said in the media, was always way more out there. Jeff Smith was on this program a few weeks ago. Chris got to meet him, but the things they were always doing on the outward was always a little worse than it actually was inward. But it was a completely different environment in the sport in general, but really here.
Yeah, the approach was we're here to win, and if you don't perform, you're out. It was like an axe throwing type of thing. So but over the years, Jack has mellowed, of course, and different things change, and racing for Roger Penske. And racing for other team owners, I felt like I had adopted the team owner's mentality and the team owner's advice and structure. And that's what's made me the better person that I am. And over the years, mellowed out a little bit, but also still stayed super competitive.
Sure.
And those are all the team owners. I can think of them 7 different ways with each one of them. But Jack was tough. And, there was a couple stories back in the day, of course. Right?
Get them out of him, Kev. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What?
Let's get a good story.
What?
We need a good story. Good
Jack
story.
What? We'll do one. I don't think it's too bad. This might be urban legend, but is it true that maybe you had broken a few things in the lounge of the hall, and maybe Jack brought a baseball bat to your motor coach and thought y'all could kind of go thing for thing?
Yeah,
no way.
I snapped one of the tables in the lounge.
Come on.
Like I just the end
what
of it.
Year was this? I want to know like a time frame.
Early 2000s. Just back it down.
So right when everything was hot.
Yeah,
I
broke a
competing
table
for titles. Yes,
it happens.
And then he rolls up to my motorhome with a baseball bat. He goes, "I'm here to pay back the debt." So, this is not good. Yeah.
It's a
what did he pay
fantastic
back
story,
the debt with? That's what I want to know.
No, he didn't swing the bat. He didn't break
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
There was, back in the day, if you wrecked too many cars, which some of the Truck Series kids wrecked too much, he'd make the kids work on the cars. And so I was that close to having to show up as a mechanic to work on the car to pay off my debt.
And that's not an idle thread. I think Ricky did it, and David Reagan did it, and I think a couple others worked in the fab shop here fixing their cars at one point in time.
It makes you smarter. Same thing as that guy making me sweep up his shop to pay off that axle, in a sense. You start to learn things.
Like you learn that, do you pull something from each owner you drive for, or each crew chief? Different people. You've had the opportunity to work with some really legendary people in the sport. Are you able to pull things from each one of those guys and really kind of mold, what your philosophy becomes?
Yeah. One of my favorite guys, we only won once together, was Roy McCauley at Penske. It was my first engineering style crew chief. He was so smart in so many categories, and I wasn't a good qualifier until I got to Penske, and then I saw all the Ryan Newman notes because he's he's Mr. Friday, like he's the Rocket Man. I sat on 6 poles that year with Roy. Like we were fast, but we would also burn the tires off the car, and he couldn't quite comprehend that. Where the Roush mentality was always, we're going to get him at the end of the race. We never really qualified well back then, and I learned so many things from him. Each guy's, I mean, it's a fun ride. One of my favorite guys that I knew was a diamond in the rough was a guy named Cole Pern. Cole Pern and Truex and Fernando Trudeau, they won the championship a few years after I left there, and he was on it. His charisma as an engineering type of guy, but also his ability to work with the people around him. That group there, they worked the hardest, and they had to because they were based in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, and they just had to work against the grain.
Kevin Woods, one final break.
Yeah. One last thing. I was thinking about this today when I was getting ready for this. Real quick,
let's finish it off. Put the cherry on top.
Go ahead. When you were here, not the '97, right? Like I've watched the 6 at this point. I've watched half a NASCAR drive. And the 17 but the '97, you drove it. I know that Chad Little drove it before, but that set idle since you were in it for that stretch. So it's kind of interesting if you think about it. It's never been kind of revived. It's still sort of sitting there where you left it.
The best way to describe this was Jeff Smith, who might have been on your show here recently, was not one of my favorites here at Roush Racing.
Yeah,
not at all. Trying to deliver me as damaged goods to Roger Penske, right? And then they retired the '97, just to kind of like put more spite and salt in the departure, right? And that's when McMurray started driving the 26, whatever number that was. It's actually turned back around to be, damn, that's cool. Nobody's really had the 97.
Yeah, it's your number.
Since I won the championship, or we won the championship with it. But yeah, so it kind of turns back around, and I look at that, and if I had to choose a number to represent my career, I'd enjoy the 97 the most, and the 45 would be my secondary one.
Awesome.
The 97, the 45 right now, a part of 2311, which you are the driver coach there. The 23, the other one, which is the 2 numbers that MJ wore for the Bulls, which is kind of cool. We got one more break. We got a few minutes left to go on the program, but let's talk about now, your life now. We'll do it next right here. It's SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. We're back here at SiriusXM's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. Channel 90. Wanted to say thank you to everybody for helping us put the show on every week. Thomas Burfield, Kevin Woods, who's sitting there in studio today. Usually he's behind the scenes. We love him. Brandon Lee, Elijah Burke, great people. Alec Walt, our producer. So thank you to each and every one of them. Kurt Busch, our guest today. It's been great to have him. Driver of that number 97 that won that championship back in 2004. And nobody's been behind it since, which, as Kurt said earlier, is pretty cool. I think so, too. It really is. I mean, 97 is kind of a cool legacy at this point. But you're with 2311 now. You're a driver coach. We just came out of Chicago. We're going to Pocono. 2 very different types of racing. How would you describe where we're at in NASCAR, the schedule? Things have certainly changed over the years. I mean, Chicago's been happening for a couple of years. Good, bad, indifferent. Do you like where the sport's at, sir?
I do, and I think it was maybe a decade ago of all these stagnant racetracks. We're going the same places. Everyone's got 2 dates. We're not quite selling. It's like Steve O'Donnell, Steve Phelps. Like, why aren't we going to some new venues? And that's when you learn that there's it's on the stock market or the exchange of SMI and NASCAR are publicly traded, therefore there's a board, and these tracks are kind of grandfathered in. I was like, nah. I was like, no, we got to go to new markets. Let's go. And so to see Iowa on the schedule this year, that was bonkers. Chicago cool. Street race the last 2 years. The Coliseum, yeah, that's its thing, right? But we have to be in the LA market. And I said to them years ago, like, why aren't we at Long Beach? Let's just take that over from IndyCar. Let's squash them. So I like where we're going. There's the variety of short tracks, road courses, the super speedway action. I I don't see anything that we're doing wrong right now. It's good. It's just Mother Nature and the rain.
I know.
Kicks our butt more weekends than it doesn't.
I saw somebody say last weekend, I'd like to schedule a NASCAR race in Death Valley just to see
Just
if
see
it'll
if we
rain
can get it to
there.
rain.
Yeah, just to see if it'll rain because NASCAR is in town.
There's
the
a track,
Chicago race. I would love to see the Chicago race have. I mean, because Saturday with the Xfinity race was awesome, and it looked like an absolute banger. And just I think the visual of the city in the background is so cool, and I think it can attract a whole new level of fan. It's got it's got that cool F1 kind of feel, yet it's NASCAR. It's familiar. It's very, very cool. And I think race fans are kind of clamoring for that right now, aren't they?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's like Lewis Hamilton in Formula One. He's always talking about street races, city centers. Like, listen, they don't go to Nürburgring hardly ever anymore, right? Because it's in the middle of nowhere, Germany.
Exactly.
But if you race in city centers, you have such a draw of the people there and just the vibe of that feel. And so I think he's right on that. And I like where NASCAR's headed. And, F1's doing Miami like they are. Why don't we race down there, on Saturday before F1?
Amen. That would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense.
We can't charge $180 for lobster rolls, though. That ain't going to go good.
Not for a NASCAR fan. They'll tell you to what yourself at that point. If you're going to charge them that, you give them, a couple bucks for a hot dog and they'll be fine. But I saw that food list and I was like, get the hell out of here. I mean, come on. This is motorsports. Make it accessible. What are you doing? Make it fun for all of us to enjoy. Kevin Woods, you got any last thoughts for Kurt Busch?
No, just appreciate you joining us.
I thought you were coming in with another heater.
No. I think we'll let it go with that. It's good to see you up and down the halls here again.
Yes, sir. No, thank you guys. It was great to be invited to come here and just walk down memory lane and see some of the trophies that we acquired over the years, but more importantly, the friendships. It's amazing to see how many people are still pushing hard in this building and helping with RFK. And I love the way that Keselowski has come in with his identity to help push this place forward.
I told you earlier, I was just thrilled to meet a actual friend of Ronnie Munn from the Howard Stern show. I mean, that was honestly, when they said Busch is coming on, I was like, oh, all in my head I could think of was Kurt Busch, like the whole Howard Stern thing. Do you hear them talk about you a lot on that show?
My phone,
you're kind of like a side star now.
My phone will blow up on certain mornings. I'm like, oh, what did Ronnie do now?
Yep. Exactly.
No, it's
there
great.
will just be days they get on a Kurt Busch rant and they'll be like, he's not really your friend, Ronnie, and he only likes you because you're on Howard Stern and blah, blah. And then, Ronnie gets pissed off and then it's a whole thing. But it's beautiful to meet you. It is great to know somebody that went to the Mund and Stephanie wedding. And thank you so much for coming on the show today, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks again for the time.
He is the great Kurt Busch. He is Kevin Woods with RFK. I'm Chris Childers. This is Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. Thanks for listening. Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio, Channel 9.